Well, hi there, everyone, and welcome to this latest sustainability snack, which is brought to you by the wonderful EmAGN and Sona crew. My name's Melinda Dodson. I'm an architect and a volunteer with the Australian Zero Carbon Housing Challenge, and I'm also a past national president. So really pleased to have you here today. And before we get started, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands and waters we're meeting on today across Australia. I see so many of you from around Australia, and I want to pay my respects to elders past and present, and I extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. I mean, so many of the foundations of their beliefs were around touching the earth lightly, and one of the ways we can do that, of course, is by reducing our carbon impacts and delivering our more light-footed residential projects. And so I guess that's what we're all here today to talk about. And the Australian Zero Carbon Housing Challenge began in 2021, and it's an award-winning initiative that we scaled nationally last year. And its focus is on decarbonisation. It's a flagship initiative of the Australian Institute of Architects in partnership with us. And it's all about volunteers collaborating to support you to deliver reduced carbon footprints, but also to help support you to do that carbon modelling. So we've got some fantastic partners, the Australian Institute of Architects and EmAGN and Sona, Surcloss, who are the makers of Rapid LCA, and many of you would know not only that app and carbon modelling tool, but also eTool. And we're also supported by our partners, ACT Government and Gin and Dairy. And so the challenge, it supports you to design low to net zero carbon residential buildings with measurable outcomes to inform our national advocacy and to accelerate built environment, climate action and decarbonisation. Joining me today, we've got our absolute champions, Laura and Faye. So that's Faye Nagao from Surcloss, and also Laura Campus of Surcloss. They're both life cycle assessment experts, and Surcloss, as I mentioned, the makers of Rapid LCA and eTool. They're joining us today specifically because we want to give you a demo of how to use the app, but also to focus on any questions you might have about your models. So I'm going to suggest that you pop any questions you have into the chat in Zoom. You can start putting questions in any time from now, and also, if you want to mention whether you've started modelling or not, that'd be really just of interest to us, and where you're from in Australia. Also joining me today is Kevin Miller, and he's going to MC the questions section of the session today, which is the focus. And Rob Henry, who is joining us virtually, as you'll see in a moment. And so fantastic array of sustainability experts, and we want to get to that part of the session quickly for you. So first, very quick recap. For any of you that aren't already aware, you can model any of your residential up to 3 stories. So we're talking missing middle, we're talking low density, detached single houses. Basically anything except apartments can be modelled in this challenge. Apartments which get into the more complex, materials, construction and technologies, that really takes you across to eTool rather than Rapid LCA. So Rapid LCA is the focus of the challenge at this point. Our goal for 2026, so our collective goal is to save carbon equal to the planting of 1 million trees. And we're already well on the way. We're about 1/3 of the way towards that goal, which is fantastic. For each of your projects, the goal is to achieve a whole of life cycle carbon footprint of 50% minimum. So in other words, you're halving the carbon footprint of your design, be it an in-progress project or a delivered project. But even, I guess, even more important is we're really interested to see those net zero projects as well. And then a big focus is the evidence recognition, promotion, and advocacy. So this helps us build a database of carbon data, but also to really showcase nationally those case studies of your projects. And so when you jump in, you just basically go to this page here. There's links on the website, the Carbon Challenge website. Add a new build, put in your state or territory where you're doing the modelling, and then follow the menus. And we'll ask you not only to follow the menus that describe different aspects of your project, but then to create and upload a poster and upload the checklist as well. And so what I want to do, here we are, is I'm going to play a video for you now. This is Virtual Rob, and
Mel, we can't hear the audio from Rob.
Okay, what we might do, apologies for that. What we might do is we'll progress on straight into the questions that you might have, and I'll queue up the video at the end of the session, and so we can you can stay and watch the video at the end of the session, or just leave the session. So we'll get straight into your questions. So I'll hand to Kevin for that.
Hi there, I'm Kevin Miller. I'm taking on the registrar role in the challenge, so I'm partially filtering questions that go to Laura and Faye, and also helping with some of the questions myself as well. I can't see any questions as yet, but I can start off the questions. I guess one is some of the early inputs that you have to put in the design. So what are the sort of areas that have the greatest impact in the reduction of carbon? Are they solar, the heat vac, or the star rating in terms of reducing carbon? Which one of these has the biggest impact, and why? This is probably to Laura or Faye.
Yeah. Okay, I will go ahead. So in the life cycle assessment, the operational energy is the module that gets the highest impact. So when you are assessing a whole life assessment, yeah, you will have to look in your operational emissions, energy and water consumption. That is why for the challenge we have two different targets, the whole of life and the upfront carbon, because upfront carbon is only embody impact until the building is complete, no? So you can see how the emissions are affected by the operational impact when you do the whole of life. So taking that in consideration, if you want to reduce your emissions for the whole of life, yeah, you will have to first try to offset your operational energy. That is why when you have a solar PV system, you will see a very high improvement in your in the performance of your dwelling. If you don't have a solar system, it will be a little bit harder to reduce your emissions. So that would, yeah, is, as you say, would be kind of the key solution to reduce your overall impact. But there are other, of course, there are other options, and there are other hotspots that you can analyze, find out, and try to reduce. But as you say, yeah, that is kind of the key.
How long would it take to model a simple project, do you think? I've heard people either take a day, but some people would only take a couple of hours. What do you think is a sort of reasonable modeling time?
So I reckon that will depend on how prepared are you when you start modeling. So if you have identified your dimensions, your materials, material quantity, if you have all that information ready, complete the modeling can take you even 20 minutes. Just to create the load, fill the information, and go through all the attributes and complete the assessment can take you as quick as 20 minutes, but that will depend again if you have to come back, review your design, and confirm your dimensions, your materials, trying to find the template. So to be realistic, I will say around 1 hour. Yeah, when you are not familiar with the software, go find the template, see what is available. Yeah.
Okay. In terms of if you're modeling an existing house, how do you account for existing materials in the house?
Yeah.
Do you want me to go, or are you good with this? I think you can probably answer all the questions, to be honest.
You too. Okay, let's share. You can take this one.
Okay. Sure. Now I'm in the spot. No, I'm just kidding. No, so typically in Rapid LCA, the way we model existing parts of the dwelling, we would not model it because technically the impacts of the existing part of the dwelling is actually allocated to the previous version of the dwelling. So in terms of a LCA boundary scope, you're not supposed to include the end of life impacts of the previous design or the previous version of the project in your new version of your dwelling. So because of that, we do not model. We actually omit the modeling of the existing parts of the dwelling in the new assessment of the dwelling. We do have templates that do account for inputs that do get replaced quite frequently. So, for example, internal finishes and such. So you will be able to find templates where the structural elements of the existing dwelling, such as the structural parts that you don't normally replace that often, has been left out, but the more frequently replaced parts is still in that template. So yeah, you just need to look for those templates that have the bits that are have more recurring impacts, but does not include like the more long-term unreplaced parts of the dwelling. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. I noticed there's a question about what are the targets. At the moment in the challenge, there's a couple of nominal targets. One is 15% upfront carbon, and then there's a 50% life cycle carbon target. When you model in Rapid LCA, if you don't meet the target, it'll come up as red. But this doesn't prevent you from submitting. It just means that you haven't met the target. So you could still do a poster and you can still submit. The reason we mention this is that with some new dwellings, it may be hard to meet the 15% upfront carbon, and so that will always be red. But if you have a reasonable solar system, or it's quite energy efficient, then the life cycle target may get over 50%. So we're generally interested to see that data as to what leads to having the life cycle reduction, even though in some cases the upfront carbon may be less. In terms of another question, I guess, is there a variance between the states in terms of the impact of the grid on their ultimate life cycle costing, life cycle saving?
Yes. So that is one reason why we split the development in the different states, because each state has their own electricity grid emissions. So the idea is that the projects that are, I don't know, located in New South Wales can be compared against projects with similar characteristics.
Are some states easier than others?
Yes. In that, yeah. So, for example, Tasman, their electricity grid is more green, is more sustainable than New South Wales, I will say, yeah. So they are in a little advantage because of that. At least for the whole of life target, the upfront carbon target is, because it doesn't consider the operational energy, it will be kind of it will be similar or same for them. But of course, in regions that are colder, they need more material, more insulation probably. So that will also make some difference.
Yeah. Yeah, you might see more variances in the upfront carbon side, depending on the regions, the weather. So I think Queensland will probably see lower upfront carbon impacts, perhaps especially if they're using lots of timber, and less focus on thermal mass for climate reasons. And like what Laura is saying, if it's you get a lot more colder weather, then you'll probably see more impacts in terms of needing to shore up on the thermal mass, unless you're using mud brick or one of those low impact thermal mass materials. Then you could be in the green.
Okay. In terms of what we are modelling against, there's a base house that is used as the comparison. Can you talk about what is the base house that we're comparing modelling to?
Okay, so there are two different things. The baseline.
The baseline, yes.
Yeah, so the baseline, when you create your lot, you will have a baseline, and then you need to customize your design. So the baseline that we create for each state is the average construction in that state, and it's based on the Green Star in the GBCA guideline for the dwellings, for the residential dwellings. But then you are not comparing your result against that baseline. The baseline is only a starting point for users to start modeling. The results are compared against the benchmark. And the benchmark is an average construction for whole Australia. So all the designs are compared against the same benchmark. Okay, so the benchmark is a little bit of all of the construction in Australia, including the operational energy. So because it's one single benchmark for the whole Australia, again, some regions, some states will perform better than others. Yeah, that answer your question?
Yeah, and can you explain how the house size and occupancy compares when you're modeling? Does that have a big impact on the outcome in terms of carbon?
The functional unit.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yes.
size versus number of people in the house.
Yes. Do you want to answer, Faye, or you want
Oh
me
yeah,
to answer?
sure. Yeah, so so basically the Australian benchmark is based on, so this is where the occupancy, the functional rate becomes really important. So the way we define what the functional unit is to look at the purpose of the construction or the building. And in this particular case, because we are trying to compare all the residential dwellings, all the types of residential dwellings that exist, maybe not every single one, but the most typical ones, we need to pay attention to the functional unit, which is the main purpose of dwellings, which is to house people, provide shelter for people. So this is why the benchmark, your results compared to the benchmark is based on the per occupant rate of your dwelling. So this makes it comparable between apartment buildings or a mansion or a little studio. It makes all these different types of dwellings more comparable to each other when you pick the correct functional unit, which is based on a per occupant basis. And I think per occupant per year as well, because depending on the structure. Oh, actually, no, I don't think that's a variable in this particular case. But yeah, the per occupant rate is how we make all your dwellings, regardless of what kind of form it takes, comparable with each other. And I think there was a question from Aaron that relates to the benchmark question, which is who sets this benchmark? So basically, we at Surcloss, we created this benchmark, but we do base it off data that we find from the ABS and the government resources to make sure that our assumptions are realistic in terms of what is considered Australian average. So yeah, I mean, Laura has actually written a very detailed post on how the Australian benchmark has been put together. We can send the link later, or maybe someone can dig it up to share it with.
Sorry, Faye, to cut you off.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that in terms of that material you put together for us and the literature that sits behind it, anyone that wants to go to the Challenge website and go to the About the Challenge page, you can see there's a lengthy document there all about the Challenge rules and about LCA, and it includes some background information on the benchmark. So that's a good starting point. And of course, if it leaves you with more questions, we can get into that through the support and through the registrar channels.
And to answer the other question, this Australian benchmark is currently, I think it's just currently used for the Australian zero carbon housing challenge development, just for this round.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Sorry, do you mind if I jump in? I find text questions quite hard.
Yep.
Do you mind if I jump on?
No, that's fine.
Yes, I suppose I'm interested in this for our practice, not just in this challenge, but also the overarching challenge of bringing carbon reductions across all of our projects. So I'm wondering if, even if we're not submitting in, even we're interested in submitting, but we might not get to it for the challenge. Does this benchmark come up? Can we work against this benchmark into the future? Is this benchmark information available when we do, I suppose, LCAs, any LCA on the Rapid LCA platform?
Yeah, we've loosely based part of it on the GBCA's document, Our Houses Weigh a Ton. which gives you a good sort of background to some of it. But you've got to then look at the variance between the states as well. But essentially, you're looking at the average house in Australia, which is around 250 square metres. Some states are higher. Unfortunately, the ACT has the highest average house size of about 280, which I think is also the highest in the world. Again, unfortunately. So there is a bit of data, and we can sort of lead you to that data. So as Melinda talked about, there are some links on the website, and part of the challenge is to gather more data around this as well. So we're kind of encouraging people to model, just particularly for having the data set there in the background, so that we can sort of put a bit more information around that as well.
But I'm wondering as well, Erin, is your question also about like after this challenge ends, like, are you talking about if you wanted to use Rapid LCA for other projects outside of the challenge, whether the benchmark will still be based on Australian benchmark? Is that your question?
Look, I acknowledge we looked in doing this and then the workload has piled up. So I haven't actually gotten into modeling anything yet. But I suppose it's just one of the biggest questions we have been having in our office is, you need to start modeling things so that, which is exactly what you're saying, is that this challenge allows us to develop up a benchmark so we can then reduce from that benchmark. And so for us as an office, if we model something and we want to understand what our average is, our average, I suppose, carbon across all of the projects, we need to, I suppose, build up that catalog, that portfolio. And so, but understanding, I suppose, for our, current projects where, like, what I suppose I'm looking for access to a benchmark, even if it's, a not a particularly accurate benchmark, but a benchmark that we can then, okay, so this project, we've reduced it by 15% against the average, or, so I'm just wondering if, I appreciate that we can continue to use LCA across, our future projects past this challenge, but will we be able to see that the bench will we be able to rate things against this benchmark into the future?
Some of the outcomes of the challenge side of things, like when we talk about getting as many modelled as possible, is we can identify quick wins, and Laura and Faye can identify them already, but some of them, even with the base that we've had so far, some of the quick wins are occupancy, house size, and renewables. And then the other side is reuse as well. But there are some sort of variances even with reuse. So Melinda's bringing up the website at the moment. If you have a look through there, it does show a couple of previous challenges which were only Canberra based, and they also show some interesting outcomes. One of the most interesting recent outcomes has been an off-grid house that we've been helping someone with. Generally, off-grid houses have problems meeting the upfront carbon components because of the infrastructure required to be off-grid, but they end up having a higher life cycle carbon. So there's intricacies between different houses, but there is no substitute at the moment. It appears for size. So if you're above 250 square meters, you will be struggling to meet the reductions that we've imposed, and unless you have things like solar grids and the like.
Kevin and everyone, I might just take a moment to show you some of the resources on the website. In lieu of, I'll let you play the video. So there's a 7-minute video on the website, the one we had planned to play today. We won't play it today. We'll let you do it in your own time. But let me show you a couple of key parts of the website that are really helpful. So here we're on the home page here. This is what you see when you first follow the link. And so as you scroll down, there's various useful information, what sorts of projects you can enter, the sorts of characteristics that we've found architects have deployed in their designs for previous entries and the current entries, you know, smaller than average, use of low carbon materials, use of renewals, perhaps some recycled materials, you know, the list goes on. You'd be familiar with many of these. We have found that more than half of the projects that have entered to date have been net zero, and we've typically had projects that have at least halved their carbon footprint. So something less than 50% has typically been the exception rather than the rule. And as Kevin mentioned, they're often the much larger houses that are driving up their carbon footprint. So that's a skim, a very quick skim of the homepage. But if we go to the Start Modelling page, again, a bit of reinforcing information that you've seen before. But if you come down here, this is a really great document to start with, the Get Started document. You can have that open while you've got the app open, if you like, because it basically just gives you a screenshot of each menu page that you're going to see in Rapid LCA. Time is a barrier or is a perceived barrier for people. So if you're concerned about being time poor, I guess the first thing to say is that we're going to extend, we have extended to the 7th of August, so there's a bit more time. And that's primarily so that you can get your poster ready for us, so that we've got enough time to be ready for the national exhibition, which is in a couple of months' time. You can keep modelling in the challenge after that, but you may not make the cut-off for your poster to be part of a national exhibition and the shortlisting process that we'll go through. So that 7th of August deadline is particularly important for having a chance to be part of the national exhibition and publication that we're doing. There's other resources here. This is a checklist that we ask you to complete. Again, it's one page, it's super quick. And this is the poster, which is a one-page poster. It's got 3 or 4 photos on it and a paragraph of text to describe your project. So we've had a lot of participants saying that they've needed about a half a day. Some of us like to double and triple check things, and that's where you might spend more like a day on the first model you do. This is some really useful information about the first pages you'll see when you get into Rapid LCA. That's the video. So when you're on this page, if you want to watch that 7-minute video, there it is. I'll only show you one more page on here. Conscious also that we're over time, so some of you may still want to start disappearing. But anyone that wants to dive in and read more about the benchmark, this is a longer document that has a whole lot of information about the challenge rules and LCA modelling principles that underpin the challenge. And I guess it's important to say that the benchmark, or rather the challenge, is getting harder as it goes on. So architects that modelled in 2021 and then in 2023 and now, they're finding that it is getting harder. And if you want to have a look at how we're ratcheting up the targets and how the benchmark is getting harder, you can read about that in this brochure here, which is a flip book. Why that's important is because, we recognise that as the national energy grid becomes greener, the materials that we choose and the ways we design and the sheer scale of the projects we work on becomes more critical, because we want to improve our embodied carbon reductions. And that really goes to the Institute's decarbonisation plan. This is one spoke of that plan. And so this is really intended to be one of the actions coming out of the Institute's decarbonisation plan. So it means, Erin and others, you can, model with confidence in that this benchmark, will make little tweaks and ratchet it up progressively as the data comes in, like every biannually, for example. But it's not a sort of a fluid evolving benchmark or framework that you're modelling in. It's designed to offer you some consistency and continuity as a practice. Thank you for that. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, I'll just answer a couple of other sort of housekeeping type questions. One is, do you have to be registered as an architect? You don't have to be registered to model. You just need to tell us whether you're registered or not when you submit. And the other one is about, can you make changes to the model? When you get to the end of modeling, you can go back and remodel, but you're not really remodeling. It retains the data that you have put in. So you can go back and make changes, particularly if you are still in design phase of a building. But also if you've made a mistake, like I have in modeling, so it is not too hard to go back. Laura might want to add to that.
Yeah, I want to say something about that. Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Yes. So the first time that you are modeling the dwelling, the software makes you to go one tab, make you to go through the workflow and visit all the different attributes in the left-hand menu. So we make sure that you're not missing anything. So the first time you have to go and unlock each attribute, but then once you go through all of them, you can jump between the different tabs and change the structure or change any services. And as you said, if you jump between the tabs, you are not changing the other attributes. You are able to update your information. Then you can submit your design. And if you realize that you want to make any further update, you can click on redesign, and this will unlock and kind of unsubmit the design. You can keep doing your changes, your update, and resubmit the design as many times as you need. So, and for no extra cost. So you can submit and redesign until you are happy with your final design.
And I know you can make a report in each time you do it. So you kind of log a report for each time that you redesign, which is useful as well, because you can see what changes, particularly if you're in design phase, you can record what things make the biggest change in the design. So yeah. So you can see here in the results that show we originally had a couple of other sort of benchmarks, but you can see the overall reduction target and the upfront target in this little outtake. How are we going for time? Is there any other questions anyone might have? Or does anyone want to add anything to the discussion? One thing I would add is just from the challenge side, the poster template is an InDesign template. If you are having issues with that, or you don't have InDesign, you can let us know. And if you provided us with the information, we can add it to the poster for you if needed. So as long as you have all the information about the project and your photos, we can do that. Okay.
And I'll just pop the links in the chat again for everyone in a moment. And just a reminder that it's closing on the 7th of August, and that's basically a graphics and production exercise for us that follows on from it. But if you want to keep modelling in the challenge, it certainly will continue through to the point where if you want to model and submit as part of your awards entry next year, we'd encourage you to do that as well. We've had a great example of a project that just won 3 Institute awards in the ACT chapter awards, and they had life cycle models, so it just added to I guess the rigour sitting behind that project. One of the awards it won was the Sustainability Award, and it was a missing middle. I think it's about 30 compact townhouses and a more affordable product. And yes, Faye makes a very good point about as a sponsor and partner for a number of years, they have heavily discounted their fee. So you're not going to pay $89 for many other services that you provide to clients in terms of that suite of consultants that you bring onto a project. I guess the very first project that I modelled back in 2020, I had specifically wanted to answer my client's question about whether they should knock down and rebuild. And in the end, we did a couple of different carbon models. And we were able to determine that we should keep the existing house and make alterations to it. So it was a great selling point for the client, and it came up as a net zero project. Thanks, Kevin.
Okay, I think that's everything, isn't it? So I guess what's left is to go and have a look at the challenge website. There are videos for both new and existing houses. There's also a checklist. And if you still would like a little bit of tuition, you can just send an email to the registrar, and we can either do it through email correspondence, or we can arrange a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting to go through your project. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you to Sona and EmAGN, and to our champions, Faye and Laura from Surcloss. Thank you to all of you for joining us today as well. I popped all those hot links in as well, so you can go to Kevin through the registrar email. You can also go direct to Rapid LCA with a question, and obviously the links to the website itself and to the demo video, which is a quick watch of 7 minutes.
No worries. Thanks for having us, and thanks for organising.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Meryl. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Um,
See you again. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.